Good morning. Welcome to our adult education and new member class on stewardship today. So, in practice, stewardship often means something like the church is asking me for money, right? And so fortunately, Sue got all that out of the way to start. This is not going to be a big sales pitch today. That's not my goal of this. Because what my hope is that when we think about stewardship, it's about faithfully managing the resources of God. So that's going to include things like the time we have, gifts God has given us, whether it's like a skill or a resource material or otherwise. And we're going to be thinking a lot about generosity and doing some story sharing about generosity. A lot of today is going to be in conversation. So I'm just going to warn you, you're going to be talking to people, and I'm going to say, okay, get up and move. And then you're going to sit with somebody else and talk to somebody else, because one of the fun parts about being in a setting like this is I want you to get to know each other and get to know people. And so especially if you are already a member here at St. Matthew's, I'm looking to you to kind of to do some mingling and talking to various people, just so you can get to know some other folks here. This is, I think, the second time in a row I've done the stewardship and generosity class. If you were here last time, it's going to be different, so you will still enjoy this, I hope. And really look forward to getting to know you all better, so welcome. And without further ado, we're going to have a series of questions. We're going to do this kind of like think of this is that we all have our own stories and experiences to generosity and to stewardship, whether we know it under that term or not. So I'm going to invite us there's going to be some reflective questions that are going to invite some sharing and some self-disclosure in a way that I think feels good. None of these should be too personal or like cutting to the quick with like divulging something that feels uncomfortable, but I think that it's going to be some sharing that I think you will hopefully find invigorating. So the first question is kind of this open-ended question. What is your earliest memory of generosity? So I invite you just to take a second to think about that, and I'll break you up into groups. What is your earliest memory of generosity? So as you continue to ponder that, I invite you to break up into groups. Maybe that we can start with those folks you're already sitting with, somebody you already maybe know, maybe you came with, or somebody that looks like a friendly enough. So maybe be in groups of, I don't know, 3-ish, and just kind of clump up kind of organically and share. What is your earliest memory of generosity?
You know folks have a cell number.
When I was a kid, I was in church. Mike was sitting up in my home. I saved up. Take a little packet, save up from whatever my grandma gave us.
My brother's
Something to put in a little packet.
My brother's 10 years older than I am, and his friend
He's offering
and I was just a little kid
along with everybody else.
10 years old.
I guess
Really was at the time.
I don't remember if it was at church or whether it was like the March of Dimes. I do remember those folders that you would
Up
put
and down now.
coins in.
Yep.
That was pretty early. I remember
I got Massachusetts and lots of very narrow.
remember my grandfather, who was a fisherman, and the way he gave to the church was in the fall when they would deliver a wagon full of corn. And I thought that was kind of
Oh, wow.
At the church I grew up at,
Someone to take around the jalapeno, my dad. My job. And then I met my own dad about that. He like, okay, I'd like to so anytime I got to even to help my fourth grade, fifth grade, just do ushers. I did that. I also I played piano. I would play often. I don't have sneaky even.
You still play?
I still have piano. I couldn't say that I play enough. I practice three children, and I'm busy following them around. So I don't have much time right now to give to that.
What are the ages?
I have a senior in high school, sophomore in high school, and all of them are
My granddaughter sings with the middle choir. She just loves
and this generosity is for my wife because she's not here. She wants to be at the house. But anyway, she was just talking to some friends of us all the help that they got from her because she wasn't in recovery.
Is your wife active in church?
Yeah, so I was trying to get my job, going back to her, and we have two little kids. So, there's some friends that really helped her. I was looking at the Christians that can run a job. And one of these mega churches in the area, they had a ministry that's designed for bad things too. So that ministry would meet, and I got involved in some of the activities in that ministry, and friendship. She was going to go into children's ministry and churches have full-time positions in that, so we decided to make that our own church. She thought that I was leading her, but then she decided against that. And then over time, I'm going to be, not to like the direction of that church myself. I still kind of stuck it out. I have it. In recent times, though, I guess I just wanted to Jefferson. My rest of my family is at that other church.
Well, I had the phone in a small hole in my heart. My wife is active, and she just messed up on the street. If I hadn't had that but it's a kind of ministry, either way, I don't know which is somebody that's the actor throwing it, in need. But she's found that like very beneficial. And then she also is a quilter and sews with the
Okay, so raise your hand if you need more time. So are we all done now? Cool, let's come back together as a large group. I was kind of waiting for like a lull in the conversation. That's great that you all still found things to continue to talk about. So how were your conversations in your groups? Good? So any stories we want to lift up and share for the whole group? Yeah, Ross?
We like the sermons. It was good to get to know some people, and so it's kind of like now that I've met them and I can say after a service or coffee, oh, well, you remember meeting you, and so it's a good start for fellowship. And, generous in spirit.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's fun to get to know each other. Great. So we're going to go to the next question. I'm going to ask the next question to give you all a second to think about it again. And then, how about new members You can stay seated, and this will be a chance for some of the current, or already like members or not in the new member class, individuals, whatever you want to think of yourselves as, can shift so we can be kind of in a new group in just 1 second. So this second question is, what are some of the practices of faith and giving that you remember from your childhood? What are some of the practices of faith and giving that you remember from your childhood? Okay, current members, shift, new members. Stacy, you'll have a new group in just 1 second.
I'm a new entry into this, so I get to just stay where I am.
Yes, same as
I'm in here about Mark.
So, I mentioned the poll before.
And no, you do not have to.
Christian, as opposed to like rock and and also just I think from a financial perspective, just saving on what you said, and you would just like, if I did some chore around the house or mowed lawn for the neighbor, I would save a portion of that packet so I had something to give my offering.
Did somebody say like?
Sunday school, kind of like, here are your packets. So you take home the packet from last Sunday, and if some opportunity came by, and obviously you're a little kid, you don't have this ongoing money stream. Right, so if you just had some money, or grandma came by, and you would put a quarter, and I felt like it would be 10 cents. I would change out the quarter for 5 nickels from your mom, and 2 nickels in, and
There was something similar at the church where I grew up. It was, but it only happened during the war. And they were given these like cardboard eggs, like little eggs that were in shape. And we were supposed to like fill them all during Lent, and then during children's
It was a lot of fun. Singing,
it was
usually have
like
a
during that when the kids got
fun
to
time.
open up their like heavy, jangly, like fish banks and put them in front of a altar, so there was just this little aisle of coins. So, like, and it was a noise when you were going for that part of it, and it felt like it was different than passing around a plate and an envelope, and it was like we got to go up front, and we got to, and we would like stuff those things. Just like elementary school. Yeah. And I mean, I think part of it is like people still don't take coins, right? So like my dad always had like a pile of change in his pocket, and so I would, every day I'd be like,
How many memories, like what do you observe in church?
but it's hard now where like money is just.
You see that in church.
Yeah, my kids had debit cards because I would always forget to give them an allowance.
That was a question for us as well. We didn't, we started the routine of, okay, you earn an allowance, here's $1,
children in something
And you're like, I don't have a dollar. So,
that you enjoy
like,
in terms of
convenience for us to. Yeah. My childhood, we didn't go to church. My family was spiritual, or they weren't religious. But so we grew up a lot of just practicing of faith and giving. But I do remember a saying that my dad used to say all the time, because he was a hard worker. He was like manual, labor. And he said to us, as he was trying to encourage us to participate in serving others, right? Whether it was doing like manual labor for other people or whatnot. And he would always say, serve others without the expectation of recognition or without the expectation of like.
Find it? Yeah, it wasn't really. It was really camouflaged in there.
That mindset, and it's always stuck with me.
Good spot.
Kind of that aerospace giving without a sense of getting something in return. So, even though we weren't, we didn't have religious background. It was just a memory that still, like, I've been looking for that serving. So I appreciate that. Both my parents
to give without expecting anything.
I haven't been to the 37.
Very Christian of your father, even though he was a
Right, and he grew up Catholic, so maybe there was some inherent part of that he remembered.
So let's come on back together as a large group. Have we all had a chance to share? Need a second more? Okay, I'll give you like 30 seconds more.
But coming here as an adult, here in Jill, was when I first started hearing about giving and the monetary element of it as well, tithing.
Okay, so let's come back together as a large group. So now that we're talking about faith practices that we remember from our childhood, I'll show you one of my kids right here. This is Cal. I don't think he'll remember anything yet, but maybe he will. So now that maybe I can use him as as a way to maybe encourage all of you to share. So, so what do you all remember as practices of faith and giving from your childhood? What did you all come up with? I heard some good
We
stories.
talked a lot over here about offerings and the envelope and the financial, taking the first check from the household finances to church, or putting our coins in our offering envelope every Sunday.
Well, how many of you remember those little offering envelopes with coins? A lot of you. Yeah. That's funny. I grew up at a church where I was in Sunday school at the same time as the church service. So for me, it was always one of those things where I could do it on the Christmas and Easter, but most of you was okay, my parents have that under control. And so I had to kind of learn on my own what it looked like for me to give generously. But I do remember going to summer camp, like a Christian Bible camp, and at the end of the week, the last worship service, they're like, "You've had so much fun, right?" There are some kids that can't afford to go to camp too, so you want to help chip in a couple bucks to help go to our camp scholarship fund to help ensure that kids, regardless of financial means, can go. And I can remember I want to give. So I can remember giving to that every summer, religiously, to the Mount Herman Campership Fund. Any other memories? Yeah, Pastor Ann?
When I was a kid, we were given little cardboard coin banks in the shape of a fish. Actually, we got them every Lent, and we were supposed to put coins in them every Lent. And my brother and sister and I would stuff coins in there, and then the kids got to come forward on Easter morning during the offering and walk up and put them in front of the altar, a big pile of coins. And then my kids got the similar banks, and we never filled them up because I never have coins in my life. And it makes me wonder about Sunday school and those kind of simple practices of giving. How does that work when we don't even use money anymore, tangible money?
That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have coins to give him, but he'd just eat the coins if I gave them to him. Any other stories? So our next, we got a couple more. So we're gonna, from whom did you learn to be generous? And how did they teach you this? From whom did you learn to be generous? How did they teach you this? Okay, so current members get up, rotate again, and then find somebody else that looks friendly enough and chat with them.
Nice meeting you.
Nearby?
I live in Brookfield.
Oh, cool.
Hi.
No, brother, I'm over here or?
Yeah, yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Julie was just offering.
Hello.
Hi.
So you're a new member?
Yes, I
Member
am.
class, great. Yep, I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I've been a member, my husband and 2 kids for
Okay, wonderful.
Have you been coming before?
I've been coming since October.
Oh, just to say hi.
Are you both? So you're both?
Yeah.
Small groups. Hold on.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I don't like, I think there's a little bit later, I mean, right, like, that kind of resonated with kind of stuff like that. Kind of compared to offerings, like, I didn't like, wow, it's just mine, and I don't think we had the biggest value of like giving, for like giving in other ways, like, we saw in the other group, like singing, like, we would emphasis on giving by serving the worship service, like, making sure you sing or play an instrument for, in service of, yeah, of the worship. That sort of thing is kind of emphasis from me. So I think more when I got older, I learned about the benefit or just recognizing how I needed to give myself for others that didn't have as many resources, like once I got to college. You know, late high school, college, going to West Marquette, and then I got invested in a lot of organizations like the Jesuit kind of tradition of being generous is when it kind of clicked for me. Earlier, I was like, it didn't really click. We'll cover the generosity concept. So,
We learn from our models. I have
I'm sure I did learn it, but I don't know. It was never the
you know, like there's a lot of literature on that. So people who
Oh my goodness.
modeling that generous behavior.
Right.
And I think that's where I got it back. I mean, and today we're very digital, and that's great. It's the most convenient, right? There's something to be said. I think next to my mom is always reaching into the purse. She always forgets to pull out her own church. Oh yeah. You know, singing the hymn, have one fit in her hand, and her left hand going to write the checkbook, and you know, but seeing that.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, it makes me, it reminds me every time church, but just also getting ready for church. It's like ingrained in your head, like, all right, what do you need? What do you need? Are you giving this week? Is it that time of the month that we give? You know, it's like part of the whole, like, process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that a lot.
We're gonna meet them in England.
I really like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and as someone who, you know, I just give through Simply Giving, like my kids aren't going to see me filling out checks in that same way.
Right, exactly the same way.
Yeah.
But you gotta see the action of it.
But there's also like, you know, like when there's the other parts. So you had mentioned when your kids see their parents, I saw my parents. And, you know, my dad always was the usher, so we all had girls, and as soon as we could see an usher, like, whatever, that was the coolest thing. And the men probably sat in the back and talked about the upcoming games in the afternoon, way too much, and that's too much of the sermon. But, you know, that was the cool thing to do for the boys growing up.
Yeah,
Usher the service.
I did that too, yeah. My grandpa was ushered, and that was, we always looked up to it, and yeah, I think it took me a while to realize that it was like giving. It was more like a, growing up, it was just like, oh, it was just so much part of the part of your Sunday, part of what you did. It was never talked about. It's not like my mom or dad ever said like, this is important because, I don't know, we didn't like talk about that sort of thing growing up. Right, it's just modeling.
You
You
mentioned,
just watch it and it just is ingrained in you.
right,
Yeah.
you had mentioned about the singing also.
Yeah.
My parents sang, and I began playing piano for the church really young. So it was encouraged. So that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know, that's good. It's great. You can't take that for granted. A lot of people are growing up and they're not, you know, they're not exposed to that sort of stuff. Remember my teacher was you know, sing loud, you know, don't be shy, you know. I almost feel like that was my duty.
Just a great experience, right, for the culture, and just seeing how
understand about
hard work.
She would give whatever she could. She was bread, piece of this, like, here's a couple
The work they
points,
go
like,
through,
I never saw that.
dynamics of the gas system, how they
the 20 out.
had to treat each other differently.
Put it for building your own.
So let's come back together as a large group.
But I want to get
That's where I became a sort of a real new guy.
Certainly.
From whom did you learn to be generous, and how did they teach you this? What did you talk about at your groups? I heard some good stories and some really profound insights in the group I was with. What did you chat about?
I was the last in the group, the first in the big group. But I shared that it was probably my mid-20s that I really felt a sort of a human drive for generosity. I was in the Peace Corps at that time, so in a very different culture on the other side of the world in Nepal, in an agricultural community, and just seeing the sort of the poverty and the very hard work. 7 days of work farming, and what people would do for each other and what they were looking for me to do for them, and I just felt I was want to be as capable and work as hard as I can and be as generous to those folks as I saw their generosity. So that was my story.
Thank you. Yeah. And Carl, the group I was with, and I relate to this too, but like, we started to figure out generosity as like a young adult. How many of you talked about that in your groups? Yeah, it's like, I felt like it wasn't until I was like in my 20s, you know, like out of college that I could like, felt like I even had like the means to actually think about beyond like, well, I can give you just like this, you know, kind of like a little bit, but I don't have much. So it took me a while to kind of have to get to that point, even I feel like not be so focused on just like not being in debt that I could like give to someone else. And so it took me a while to figure that out too. Let's do another rotation in just a second. This time, when have you been on the receiving end of someone's generosity? And what effect did that have on you? When have you been on the receiving end of someone's generosity? And what effect did that have on you? So let's do another rotation with our current members. New members, you can stay seated where you are. Let's rotate again.
Yeah, welcome. We'll see
Good to meet you.
What outnumber you be?
Yeah, all right.
Once you got the rock, you always got the rock.
All right.
Hi, Mark.
Mark.
Just, really hit me when, with this question, because we were in El Salvador in 2000, and
was so incredibly touched by the generosity of the folks that, it was a church group that went over there, but we stayed in a little bitty community, and the woman who lived in the house where we stayed just vacated that house so that, Laura's from Wisconsin could move into her house. Folks who had very little to eat themselves fed us. It was just so moving to be in this community where they were so rich in generosity and faith and love.
Exactly.
Right, you want to see all the different.
My husband had surgery.
Yeah, so you don't want to see it.
He was in the hospital for about a month. He's okay. I believe the hospital is talking about it was December and January, so it was dark. But my next door neighbor is a dietitian, and she would leave me a bag of cookies. And my sister also dropped off cookies on a regular basis for me. It was just really a heartwarming thing to come home in the darkness of winter at night at 8 o'clock, leaving the hospital to go home. I had a cat, so it was all
Merge with them.
it was just really something
It's about, it was
I've been here for like
9 years ago.
So I got married here 10 years ago.
But I found myself again.
Fiance and I, kind of.
Provider at the whole family for, the first,
Yes, we love it, right? We do. We love the Sunday school. My husband and my daughter are home doing
and for my wife, so it was not planned, it wasn't, we didn't see it coming, and just to have folks around us that are friends that
receiving it. So does
brought
anything
meals.
I mean,
It was
obviously.
more than that, it was just, as you're looking for jobs, people that were more than willing to put your name forward or connect you with people in their network, go way out of their way to just kind of give you hope during that time.
Yeah. And what a difference.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard, when you're out of work, which I was at some point for about a year. You're kind of disconnected, and you wonder if you'll get this momentum going again.
Yes.
It's lonely, so.
At the time, I think you just moved to the house and you were like,
Go back to my Peace Corps experience again, because I was finishing my work there in one of the villages. They wanted to thank me for what I had done, bringing the water system. I built water systems. And into structure, into the caste system, the caste the main, the upper caste, the Brahmins live in one area, and then the Kshatris and Demise. But there's also lepers in this village. So the lepers, they had to build their own town for them. So at the end, I was getting invited to dinner at everyone's house, including the leper family. And then the mayor of the village said, "You gonna go?" His wife was speaking in
When I became pregnant, I had a lot of friends. I had my family in Sheboygan and some friends around here, but no other
people
community.
wouldn't understand it. I went.
Children,
and
my other friends who were often doing other
this
things.
man had been a soldier in the British Army, and he was very near Easter. He opened the Bible and he read, I guess the 23rd Psalm.
Because they knew what it was
And I wasn't
like, and
expecting it, and him doing that in English. And he just, they welcomed me into that household, and I just felt so good, and it just really understood how to reach out and be a friend, to be generous in ways not just with food, but with spiritual.
giving the meals. I always, it was, no, not with food, it was just separate.
Remember that?
Yeah, more of the same.
In Cranbrook. So we lived in Tosa.
Put back together as a large.
No, I won't. But, no. Very
So,
nice to meet you.
how many of you heard a a story at your group that felt like good or encouraging to hear? Yeah. How many of you felt good to share a story of a time where someone's been generous with you? Yeah, isn't that nice? So now let's just pivot a little bit to from a time that someone's been generous to us to a time we ourselves have been generous. Let's just stay in these same groups for this question. When have you exercised generosity toward someone, and what effect did that have on you? When have you exercised generosity towards someone, and what effect did that have on you?
I kind of said it, you know.
I can go with my badge here. When I enrolled as a Stephen Minister here, we have a Stephen Ministry program. It's a sort of person-to-person caregiving for people going through a crisis. And it started in 2017, and I was still working at the time. But I knew I needed something to draw me away from work, otherwise I'd work for the rest of my life. So I started that with some trepidation whether I'd be any good at it and how would it feel, but I did it. Then I had 3 care receivers over the 2018 to person, and you're making a big commitment of time with this person each week, walking them through their crisis and listening to them and showing up for them. But it's tremendously rewarding. So giving a lot of myself, but still getting back from them. Just more insights about how my mind works and how my feelings are. So it's work, but it's generosity at its best. And let's get a lot out of it. And then during the pandemic years, when we couldn't meet as frequently, but there were people with different types of needs, I'd be calling people from the congregation who were shut in for different reasons and just talking to them over the phone. That was also very fulfilling.
Oh, you want to take it? Doesn't have to apply to this. Yeah.
I feel like
I'm sorry to debate it. Okay, I have a kind of
I know, it depends, right?
some very complicated feelings about
You know, Franklin, quite a little bit.
So, just unfolded as quick as I can. I was walking, we were taking care of our children's dogs. Walking from our house, and there was a car broken down on the street. And I just stopped and I said,
so I try to connect
do you need any help? And I thought maybe they ran out of gas or something.
Yeah, but more so not in the immediate help. They're like on a,
The short version was there were 10 people
we know kids somehow.
there were little kids
It's all how things turn out.
and I couldn't get the van, the windows were dark enough, so I had no idea. And they asked, we were about 4 houses away from our house, and they said, can we push the van into your driveway, and then we'll call our uncle to come and pick us up. And so I said, oh, sure.
What are you doing the rest of the day?
And
For a couple of years, it was like this.
and the mom said, well, can we, but I always have to use your bathroom. And
to build something.
Gargle was home.
Oh, good.
And I had
an idea of what kind of house we wanted.
the Labrador with me.
Oh, yeah.
But, and I just kept saying,
Suburban areas.
am I doing the right thing? Am I being just
where we found the house.
And And so the long and short of it was, you know, we were able to help them get the car fixed, and the mom who was involved started texting me asking for a little more help. And finally I called Connor. He's a member of our church. And I said, Connor, I don't know what to do. I don't know if this is healthy, and Connor said, Keith, the Good Samaritan helped once and was on his way. And I said, thank you, Connor. Okay, so I did, you know, bring ties with the family, and it made me, you know, it made me really question myself, my own generosity, my wisdom.
You know, I would like oh, wow. Yeah, that's the way I really know. So much in the society in which I live in a really safe neighborhood, but I don't answer the door if I don't answer the door, which is too bad. But in a way, I understand your trepidation, and then how much longer down the line.
Yeah. So it was.
Well, you did the right thing, and including listening to Connor.
And in fact, our daughter, when you know, when I told her the story, she lives in St. Paul, and she said, "You stop this right now." So I listened to my daughter. So I don't know, but it was a tough one.
But on that particular day when they really needed it,
They're fun, no,
and to go to the bathroom,
yeah,
those are the right things.
they get along great. My son just had a talent show. He was in a, it was casino.
So top that one.
He played piano. That was Friday night, yeah. And I grew up in Boston, and I got doing piano for my mom. What do you do now? I work anymore, so it was always like I knew when I was kids, like I'm gonna at least try to have him to piano, and he really likes it.
Workers in the state of Wisconsin, project management, change management, also.
Okay, let's come back together. Thank you all for sharing.
Communication. I know it's like
And I am so sorry I took up way too much time with my long story.
So we've done some reflecting now about our kind of our own experiences, often earlier in life with generosity. And now we're going to pivot from talking about our individual generosity to talking about generosity with the church. And this is one of the reasons I want us to be in groups, ideally with members that have been here for a while and people that are newer, because this might be able to give some insight to people that just have kind of some more kind of historical perspective. But it's also really valuable for folks that are new here. What have you observed over time? How does St. Matthew's practice generosity, and how does St. Matthew's teach generosity? What have you observed? How does St. Matthew's practice generosity, and how does St. Matthew's teach generosity? Let's talk about this in our groups for a couple minutes.
Maybe we could jump back and hear your stories.
Page, right? In northern Wisconsin, during my childhood, a lot of folks from Hillput monks, folks from Vietnam to
yeah, definitely. And there's
Appleton, Green Bay, Wausau, it seemed to be
multiple,
northern
like,
Wisconsin where
service
like the
opportunities.
very strong number were being moved to. So there were communities of folks moving in and there was still a lot of work
Mission trips.
really building houses so that folks could move in. And it was done
I know. Yeah, I've gotten a few things from, yeah.
that they were going to
You get
attend.
the church.
No, it should be contributing members of the church that was done just to do it. And, you know, just seeing how that helped. There were a lot of, just like today, there were a lot of existing stereotypes and cruel jokes being said about the people moving in by the people that didn't understand. For instance, it came up just recently that there was a joke that was being made very cruelly in the community that these people ate dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And
Put it away in my closet.
so the church became sort of like, okay, God loves these people, so we're going to do whatever we can to help. So it kind of like, really, again, seeing that in action affects you as a kid.
And I feel like growing up, like I didn't feel like it was talked about. Just really a lot. The principal.
But I hear that St. Matthew's has also, we haven't, as far as I know, we haven't any refugee families, but there definitely
Top one year.
been folks in the community who have been involved in the lessons.
Talked about.
We offer so many opportunities to serve, though, I guess, with partner congregations in Tanzania or Salvador. Services, meals for needy people around here. And meals for people who, meals for people who just need meals.
Let's come back together a little.
Slip and fall.
Just wanted to step aside just to kind of get some of the creative juices flowing, and this is something I wanted to talk through together. A large group.
Yep, right.
So what are things that came up in your groups? How does St. Matthew's practice generosity? I heard lots of good thoughts. Curious what you all thought of. Yeah, Paul?
Yeah, I think the thing that we talked a little bit about, but also impressed my wife and I with St. Matthew's is how much they give away of their income to external ministries.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. St. Matthew's does give a lot of kind of money that received, out to external ministries. Yeah, definitely. That's something that's impressed me too, for sure.
The lunch preparation twice a month?
Yeah.
Repairs of breach?
Yep. So for those of you that aren't unfamiliar, downstairs between the services twice a month, repairs of the breach. You can make a bag lunch for folks that need a meal. And so that's something we do regularly here. What else do we chat about? Yeah, Don?
I'll give you a little history. I've been here about 20 years as a member. There's an organization called JOMM, Just One More Meal Ministry. There was a group, this goes back to about 2010, and there was a group of people that met here, and SAS provided a lunch for them. And there was a big pan of food that wasn't served, and Pastor Chris said, well, what are you going to do with that? And the fellow said, we have to throw that away. He said, would you mind? He says, we have a fella here who takes bread down to Hepatha Church. Would you mind if he would take the food, we'll wash the pan? He said, well, let me call my boss. And this was one of the nice things is SAS, I'll just call him SAS. He said, tell your man to come here every Thursday. I'll give him all the pans of food, and he can take them all. And that started it, and now Chris has a warehouse where people bring pallets of food to be made to serve the people in the inner city. And then there were 4 churches that started every Wednesday. We would serve meals at Cross Church. This is another thing that was very, very rewarding to see people who are in need come and be fed. COVID came along and kind of put an end to that, but there were so many other ones. The Stephen Ministry. And Carl Johnson, I have to take my hat off to Carl. For years, he cooked like 60 meals downstairs in the basement, and he would ask several of us to go and serve at the guest house for homeless people. It's all of these things that St. Matthew's practices that makes me glad that I came here when my daughter brought us here. She was a member here, but she's married with a family now, and they go to church in Brookfield. But it's, you know, there are so many things, the Stephen Ministry, all of these things that St. Matthew's does that benefits other people. And it's not maybe giving a lot of money, this and that, but taking time to do things. And it's very rewarding to know that you're helping people that need it. And now Trudy tells us we need to make 125 bag lunches because there are more homeless people. And you just know that there's a tremendous need in the community. And St. Matthew's is one of the organizations that serves that need. And I thank everybody that gets involved in things like that. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate that. So just, I have some summary thoughts that kind of, at least for aspects of like financial generosity. I mean, there are so many ways St. Matthew's is generous. Making these bag lunches. We have people that teach Sunday school like every week during the school year. People that are coming regularly and you know, for music groups to help, you know, bless our, you know, our community with beauty in music. There are so many ways, but that I hope you continue to experience and learn over time. I want to give you some just details, kind of given that we're in a new member class that you may not yet know, so you're just ready for, you know, some of the way our church runs. For years we have used what our longtime treasurer Rob Waddell called a first fruits budget, which means this concretely, our budget for 2025, our general operating fund, we budgeted a budget of $1,030,000 in our budget. That's what we're projecting to have in our general fund. Then we just take a 10% cut off that, like a tithe, if you will, 103,000. That's 10%. That goes before anything else we do goes into benevolence, which is like a kind of a churchy term for going to other ministries and other people that need it, like what Paul was talking about. So start with 10% there. In total, I looked at our budget last night. About 20% of our funds in total go to others outside of our church, which includes going to some of our partner churches, which I've listed up here. We give money to what is called ELCA Mission Support, which supports both our regional body, the Greater Milwaukee Synod, and our nationwide body, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, or the ELCA. Much of that money is going to specific ministry, like to causes that we think are important, like things like benefiting like Lutheran social services and things of that sort. And there's also things we call donor designated funds. You can give money directly to our general fund, but you can also say, here's some money, I want to make sure this money goes to, for instance, our partners in Milwaukee at Cross Lutheran Church. So you can directly give to that as well. So between our donor designated funds, our synod support, which is about $95,000, a little over $95,000, and this and our other mission support, it's about 20% of our money that comes into St. Matthew's goes out to something, to blessing those outside of our own community. We also have an endowment, which is kind of just a pot of money we have that we've accrued over years and is managed by technically a separate legal entity, the St. Matthew's Endowment. And there are rules and all that about how much can be dispersed each year. And the disbursement for this year is about $50,000. And the rules for that, there's a couple of like education funds supporting those in seminary, those at ELCA colleges. So if you have kids that are thinking about going to an ELCA college, we've got money for you. And And then also, there's money that supports St. Matthew's mission, which in practice means it goes to like our ministry partners. We have 2 churches in Milwaukee that are ELCA churches that we're partners with, Cross and Reformation. We have partners with our synod has a partnership with the Lutheran Church in El Salvador, and we have 2 partners there. Pan de Vida, for those of you that know Spanish, that means bread of life. That's a church in El Salvador. And then Casa Esperanza is I think House of Hope. That is a homeless shelter in San Salvador, in the capital city. So those are 2 partners that money goes to. And then St. Gisi is our partner congregation in Tanzania, that because our synod has a partnership with the Diocese of Meru, and St. Gisi is a congregation there. So a lot of our endowment funds also go to that. So there's kind of that's above and beyond that 20%, and so that's just beyond all the ways that we share our time and our gifts. But I just wanted to give you some numbers, some dollars and cents. So when you give to St. Matthew's, this is what's happening behind the scenes too, as well. Any questions or comments about this? Cool. Did any of us talk at all about how St. Matthew's teaches generosity? What do you say, Pastor Ann?
I think one of the best things that St. Matthew's does, and this happened at the church where I grew up too, is that we send our youth on mission trips in the summertime, right? So Wauwatosa is a pretty privileged place to be, pretty privileged community, and we send our kids to the lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans, right? That's still struggling after Katrina. This summer they're going to Washington, D.C. So they go different places and kind of see for themselves. It's not theoretical, right? Like, why should we be generous? Because Jesus says so. No, it's like we meet the people, we do the work, we serve the food, or we fix the building, whatever. Like, we give our kids, and I think at a really kind of critical life stage, a really amazing experience of service and generosity. And I'm just so glad that we do that.
Yeah,
and you got to go last year.
I did. I get to go this year too. It's great. For me and my own story, going on trips like this taught me generosity, and it's a great thing that we do to allow our high schoolers to be able to do that as well, for sure.
And the adult missionary too.
Yep, adult mission trip. Yep.
Last year we went to New Orleans, and this year we haven't figured out where it is yet, but it's in Florida somewhere. But it'd be the same type of thing. We're helping with houses, and it's still awful ball, and that's just terrible in New Orleans. Still trying to help rebuild these houses. So.
Thank you all. We talked about this a little bit already. We're not going to break into groups. So beyond finances, ways that we're generous. We have caring ministries like Stephen Ministry. I see some Stephen Minister badges on. If you want to learn more about that, that's a great way of being able to be kind of in a one-on-one caring relationship for those that need it in our community. Do a lot of volunteering, like Sunday school. We have people that lead our youth ministry as well. We have confirmation guides that are here pretty much every Wednesday for confirmation or many weeks. So that's a huge gift as well.
I can share a little something here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my name's Dave. I've been a member here for about 12 years. I volunteer with the technology team. Mm-hmm. And when I was in a new member class, it was Pastor Chris and Pastor Margaret at the time. Oh, yeah. And one of the points that Pastor Chris made was that it can be overwhelming, all the different ways that St. Matthew's is involved and all the various things you could volunteer for. And the point that really stuck with me was, don't let that discourage you from picking one thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's such a gift because you know technology well, you know the AV stuff well, the things great, so you can help keep us, those that can't make it to church on Sunday morning, can be worshiping online with us, or plugging into adult ed because you put your time and your gifts into that.
Don't feel like you have to volunteer for every single thing that's
Yeah.
happening, you know, that it can be a lot, so just, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. We have meals through Guest House, and we've lifted that up. We have our ministry partners we regularly visit. Also, there's things we share our building, allow a lot of groups to use our building. L'Arche, which is for people with developmental and cognitive disabilities, use our building on Sunday afternoons. We recently hosted a Synod event. We allow AARP to come and help seniors in our community get tax preparation done here. So there's a lot of things we share our building for a lot as well. That's another way we practice generosity as well. Things that you might not realize. Like Dave said, you don't have to do everything. These are just things just to give you a more holistic vision of how generosity looks and works here at St. Matthew's.
We do a lot of making meals, like repairs of the breach and guest house, but there's also a meal ministry that's kind of in-house. So like, if somebody's just had a major surgery, members will like drop off meals at that person's house so that they don't have to cook. And these people are like, and this is so hard for me to believe, like super happy to make dinner for their family and someone else's family. And it's like that kind of generosity happens among our members too.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Ann, for lifting that up. There's a lot more things than we just talked about today. Talking about all things generosity and stewardship in an hour is impossible, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of a gloss. Thank you all for being here. Again, if you're curious who I am, Pastor Kevin. Happy to be, a good way to reach me is through my email address. I look forward to getting to know you all better. Some new members in particular will probably be hearing from me soon. Welcome. Really appreciate you all here. Thank you for sharing and for your wisdom and your time this morning. Thank you all.